we kind of live in a class society today. But it's very different from the classes of previous ages. In particular, this is not my idea, but I really like it. The difference between classes today are determined by the degree of virtuality of their lifestyle. And in particular, the upper class are those people who can afford reality. Greetings, this is Eugene the Philosopher, the greatest living philosopher after the unfortunate passing of Quentin Robert de Nameland, who has been the greatest living philosopher before me. In 1967, French philosopher Guy Debord has published a book called something like La Société du Spectacle, right? The Society of the Spectacle. And in this book, he was talking about like mass culture, right? Things like that. I mean, obviously, like 60s was the time when like the television was on the huge rise, etc., etc. And obviously radio was still a big thing. And it has brought to life this phenomenon of this like pop culture, mass culture, etc. I mean, obviously it was present before that as well, but that was really like the blooming of it, right? With all the music and stuff like that. But now, actually, I want to talk about something very similar, some society of the spectacle, but of a completely different sort, of the modernist age, so to speak, right? The 21st century one. And specifically, what is different in 21st century, like right now, with respect to, let's say, 1960s, is we have social media, right? That's like the biggest difference in cultural sense. And so there is a thing, so to speak, today, and it's kind of like one of the main points of this video, and I kind of just want to put it out there as it is. So if you haven't made a post on social media today, right, about something, that something didn't happen in today's day and age, right? So unless you've posted about this, it never happened. And vice versa, if you post about something that didn't happen, it kind of did, right? Because, well, there was a post about it, right? So there is obviously like even a very specific perversion today in many people who actually do certain things only to post about it on social media, right? Only to show how cool they are or whatever else, right? Something like that, like, let's go to this alley, we can make some cool photos for our Instagram there, right? Something like that, especially with girls, obviously, this is the case. But not only, I mean, men do this as well, quite a lot. So, in a way, today, we're living almost like for social networks, right? Rather than, you know, supposedly social networks should have existed for us, you know, so now it's kind of the reverse, right? It's they're not a tool anymore, not like means to an end, but rather an end in itself, all right? I kind of remember again this quote from Robert Fripp from King Crimson. It was about discipline. They had an album called Discipline. So he said, discipline is not a means to an end. Discipline is not an end in itself, but rather a means to an end, right? I'll probably link the song in the description. I mean the song, it's instrumental. Okay, so Guy Debord talked about consumer goods being like the driving force, the motor behind the society of the spectacle. So in this way, like metaphorically, you have to follow the trends, the fashion, you know. Well, again, 1960s was the time of mass media, emergence of like really mass media, like public politics, like all that kind of stuff, right? Fashion, etc., etc. I mean, music again, pop culture. So you have to follow the trends. You have to buy the newest album of the Beatles or whatever else. You have to listen to this very important speech that somebody gave on some issue, etc., etc. And you need to buy this new stuff in order to be a part of the spectacle, right? In a way, you have to buy a ticket to the spectacle, to be a part of it, to be a viewer or even a participant, perhaps. right? So you're buying consumer goods ensures that you are a viewer of the spectacle or even a participant. But now the situation is such that the participation in a spectacle is mostly free, right? As social media are, in monetary sense at the very least. However, the difference is that it's not free at all in like emotional and like psychic sense, in a way, right? In a way, again, you're paying with your soul. It's almost like you're making a deal with the devil. I made a deal with the devil, Jimmy. You know, so you're making a deal with the devil to participate in this spectacle. You're selling a part of your soul to be on social media. Like, social media requires you to sacrifice a part of your, at least a part, right? Maybe the whole of it, actually. So now you yourself actually is a consumer good, right? Something like that. For sale and being marketed through your social media pages. Okay. There is a point of my big boy Rollo Tomasi about, which I wish to repeat, that, yeah, today we live in an age of personal brands, you know, like Eugene the Philosopher is a personal brand, for example, and what he calls hustle economy, you know, like I have this side hustle where I make some money, etc., etc. I have this personal brand of mine, like, I don't know, Van Darkholm or something like that. So yeah, it's a very interesting time. And again, remembering what I said about the soul, it's very troubling emotionally, right? Like, again, people keep talking about how, like, depression is on the rise and like all this anxiety and stress because of social media, right? And I can see why. I mean, I've been on social media for how long? Like 14 years, maybe, something like that. And yeah, it's been a rough time, actually. Quite fun as well, sometimes at least. So it also brings to life, this new situation, a significant enhancement of, let's say, various interesting tendencies, right? So various fashionable things like transgenderism, for example, or veganism, or ecological activism, or all this, you know, other like woke type stuff, like social justice warring. All these things are really only relevant in this context, in this personal brand, hustle economy, social media oriented reality, all right? Why are they relevant? Well, because you are your personal brand, right? And therefore, if you brand yourself as being something, well, now you are known as being something rather than nothing, you know? Rather than just being John or Jane, you are now the transgender, you know, something like that. So, you know, like Eugene the Philosopher, you know, I'm not just Eugene, I'm Eugene the Philosopher, right? So yeah, so because really, if you think about it, like, again, you are good to be consumed, right? You are something that is marketed through your social media, and therefore you have to make yourself more interesting, more like quirky, if that's the word, like more to have some kick to you, you know, something spectacular, right? Some peacock's tail, roughly speaking. So because like otherwise there's no point in like manifesting these things, really. No, you know, like no point in saying I'm vegan to your friends in real life, because, well, first of all, they all already know that, right? And second of all, well, if you gather all of your, if you're a vegan and you gather all of your in real life friends, you're going to be talking to an empty room, right? Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully you got the idea. So whatever the actual personal reasons for these things are, like if we attack it from like a psychoanalytical angle, for example, we might say, well, this person might have had, I mean, reasons for this peacocking, right? The heavy variety of such. So for example, this person might have had some sort of defective family. They might have had some childhood trauma or whatever else interesting happened to them in the previous years of life. But like, these personal reasons are not for show, right? They're hidden somewhere deep beneath. But what is shown in these media, in their social media pages, on the wrapping of their personal brand, right? Of this candy that they wrap in this advertisement of theirs, which is their social media page, are like just emanations of their personality, right? Like, we don't see this depth, this inner depth, right? The only thing that we see is this like blunt, blind, flat manifestation or declaration of something, right? That smile of Joker, in rainbow colors. I've actually, like, regarding the movie Joker, I don't remember if I talked about it, but I'll probably digress for like half a minute here. So I've watched it and actually quite liked it, but then again, I was perplexed by this lack of depth in it. Like, really, what the movie is about is like, we're just following him. I mean, the new Joker, like 2019, I think, with the Joaquin Phoenix. So we're just like following him around, but we are not really ever shown anything about him, really. We only observed like really the surface. Like, we don't, and there is no depth in this movie. Perhaps it's deliberate. I don't know, but that's the impression I got, and I was a little bit dissatisfied by this. But otherwise, the movie is really great. So maybe if that's actually the artistic idea, the aesthetic idea behind it, then it is just genius. Yeah, I mean, it's really well done in this case. But anyway, it's really fitting to what we're talking about here, right? So, and otherwise, like, really, in our popular culture, there are manifestations of such things, not only Joker, but many others. Like, the scripts that we're having today, they have absolutely flat characters, which are, evil because they are evil, or good because they are good. Like the proverbial example with Rey in Star Wars, who is like powerful because she's powerful, right? Just by default, etc. So instead of some conflict and trauma being some sort of, the proverbial character arc, where this conflict and trauma sort of develops with the character and like turns into something else, and it moves alongside the plot, we get just, again, this blunt declaration and manifestation, like, I'm vegan, guys. Like, that's it. Like, this is the beginning and the end, and there's no depth to it, right? So, yeah, and hence all the other activism and social justice warring and things like that. It's all just a manifestation, right? It's all just a cover, right, for a person. It's not a person itself. All right. And why? Well, because we live in the age of social media, personal branding, hustle economy, society of the spectacle, but of an entirely different sort of this personal sort, right? Not the one that Guy Debord talked about, where he talked about the society as a whole. All right. I mean, it obviously encompasses society as a whole, but on a much deeper level, right? On individual level. Okay. So, and here I want to just briefly mention like the more fundamental aspect of what is happening. So some time ago, like half a year ago, maybe a little bit more, I've made a video called Hyper Reality. I'll link it in the description, where I talk about this, how complex networks bring to life these hyper real objects, like, well, watch the video. I mean, it's really, it's a relatively complicated subject, so I can't really briefly describe it to you. But basically, yeah, it's whatever. Let's just stop with on this for now. But with regards specifically to what I've talked about in the beginning of this video here, I want to mention that in this reality that we have today with the social media, personal branding, blah, 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 we come to this interesting like doubling of reality, right? So in hyperreality, I only talk about like the virtual reality per se and the networks that support it. But here I talk about specifically a person and their like virtual image, right? So there is a certain like doubling of reality that is occurring. Like there is you and there's your social media pages, like your personal brand. There is Eugene and there is Eugene the Philosopher, right? On YouTube. So, so we arrive at the situation where this mirrored image, so to speak, is more real than real, you know, like more human than human again. And each person, or almost each, well, let's say many people, have this sort of digital fingerprint, you know. They have this digital emanation of theirs in some way, shape, or form. Even if they don't really have social media pages, they have like history of their YouTube searches, for example, which is like an imprint, right? It's almost like you can try to recreate the person using this imprint, right? Or what else? Well, yeah, things like that, you know, history of any other sort of browser, web browser history, you know, proverbial. It's your digital fingerprint. It's your digital doppelganger, so to speak, right? And then we have phenomena as again, like the ones I've mentioned previously, that if you haven't posted something on social media, if you haven't filmed something, if you haven't taken a photo of something, it never happened, basically, right? Because the digital fingerprint is absent. Therefore, if there is no, like vampires, you know, they have no mirror image, therefore they kind of don't exist, you know. So if there is no mirror image of something, that something also doesn't exist, right? If there is no digital image in some Google server cloud somewhere of some, I don't know, piece of grass, then this piece of grass is not there, right? Maybe there is a satellite image somewhere, you know, on Google Maps or something. Okay, so that's why you see people, like if you go on any sort of concert, you would see like, I don't know, like maybe 30% of people are just standing there filming what is going on their mobile phones, and it looks absolutely ridiculous. But they're working on their personal brand. Oh, look, I went to this concert, because otherwise nobody would know they went for this concert, and their personal brand would like lose in value a little bit, at least in terms of like possibilities, right? Etc., etc. And actually, well, there might come a question like, why do you ever film anything at all? Or rather everything today, you know. I've had an aphorism some time ago, actually a very long time ago, well, again, something like 13 years ago, or about so, maybe 15 even, that a photo is nothing but a window into senility or old age. It was in Russian, so I was translating on the fly, so to speak. So yeah, you're making these windows for yourself to look at your past, or rather at the digital fingerprint of your past through these windows, through these photos, right? When you're gonna get old, right? You're gonna look at yourself, at your mirror image again. It's not gonna be you. A photo of you is not you, right? It's just your doppelganger, your mirror image, your digital fingerprint, your personal brand, etc., etc., etc. Okay. And Louis C.K., by the way, had a pretty funny piece about this, about specifically parents filming their children. I'm gonna link it in the description as well. And I completely agree, and this is what I mean here, specifically in this segment. So actually, like filming children, I think could be relevant. I mean, your children, if you know what I mean. So it could be relevant, perhaps only for those children that are really small, you know, because they won't remember it probably, right? They aren't really experiencing it, like in the sense of their memory. Of course, they're like learning and experiencing, obviously, per se, but they probably won't remember it. So it makes sense to, let's say, film like your kid going to school for the first time or something like that, you know. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just kind of if you're filming every day of your life, like, you're just absolutely crazy, I would say, right? Like, it's just a waste of server and disk space, you know. You are making the job of NSA, FBI, and CIA harder with your flooding of useless images. Their neural networks are already busy as it is, looking through your photos on Facebook and stuff. Okay. Yeah, probably the last thing I wish to note. So we started with society as a whole, right? I talked about Guy Debord and Society of the Spectacle. So in this respect, in the respect of reality versus hyper-reality, like you versus your personal brand, and like reality versus, well, yeah, hyper-reality, aka virtuality, let's call it that, right? So in modern day and age of social media, if there is no virtual fingerprint, there is no real counterpart, right? It is assumed so, at least, more or less. But if we look at the society as a whole again, if we again abstract from this individual level where we've been for most part of this video, and we go to the level of the society as a whole, we can still say that we kind of live in a class society today. But it's very different from the classes of previous ages. In particular, this is not my idea, but I really like it. The difference between classes today are determined by the degree of virtuality of their lifestyle. And in particular, the upper class are those people who can afford reality. And this is a really interesting idea that I really like. All right. I guess that would be all. I most likely have forgotten something, so if I did, then I'll just comment myself under this video. And you're welcome to do so if you wish to. Alright, thank you for watching. The eons are closing.